here with my good friend and brother, Lyndon Holtzheimer. We've been through quite a journey together, and I want to start with giving you guys a little bit of that backstory so you can understand more about Lyndon. He's played a huge part in everything that I've done over the last 5 or 6 years. Almost every big decision has gone through Lyndon in some way, and we've worked together on a number of different projects. So I want you to meet him a little bit more and understand the role that he's playing now, also in the development of UNCOM and behind the scenes with a lot of the uncommon success. Lyndon has a massive background in building, firstly building, and then turning that into building tech and building connections all around the globe. And so it's, with a great, I'm really happy to have this conversation, man, and for more people to meet you. So thank you so much for making yourself available for this.
Thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit more about how you went from sort of being a builder to through PT and then going and meeting some big names in US politics and tech and all that. How does a builder from the country in Queensland end up doing that?
Yeah, full disclosure up front, I'm a builder from a town of 500 people in the middle of nowhere, center of Australia. So we'll get that out of the way up front. So I guess I always had a passion for solving problems, and I always looked at building as it's just problem solving. You needed this before this before this. There was an order. You had to have structure. You needed to be able to. You actually had to be able to think the thing into existence. And it's interesting now after listening and being attached to what Paul's doing. I see now why what I did building has overlaid so well over what I've done. That ability to be able to look at a 2D thing and think it into existence right there, to go, that's going to work, or no, that's not going to work, and here's why. So I always looked at building as problem solving. I worked for my father from the day after I started high school for then a decade before he decided to retire. And that really forced me then to look at, okay, do I want to keep swapping my time for money? Or do I want to do something else? So the transition from that to technology was just one of getting to a point of enough's enough. I'm not going to keep trading my time for money. I have a wife and a couple of children at that point. So it was, let's look at something else. I've been fascinated in technology from some of the work I've done with, in particular, one BMX athlete, Kyle Bulldog. So helped him sort of manage his career for him for 3 or 4 years. And I saw, this was 2000, to give context, 2010, 11, 12. So at the height of Facebook likes, it was all about how many likes people had on Facebook. Over the 2010 Extreme Games in Los Angeles, I remember the Monster Energy guys skyding how much money they'd spent buying Facebook likes to have more than Red Bull for that, over that event. So that really puzzled me, going, well, sure, I see, it wasn't about quantifying how much money they're spending. It was, likes was the metric then. But that sort of, seeing that money being spent, talking to, Vans, shoe company, Monster, other companies, negotiating these endorsement deals for the athletes, that got me interested to go, well, if they're paying, all of a sudden, the rider that had 400,000 likes on Facebook was getting more than my guy, Kyle, purely because not because he was winning more, but he had more likes. I was like, okay, I see a trend here. So that was the segue, seeing the shift, seeing those companies shift towards social media. I knew, okay, there's something here. iPhones had launched, late 2008. The App Store, which was obviously the big disruption for iPhones for business, had just launched. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and by chance, with my brother Kerry, we ended up starting a mobile app company. I knew nothing about mobile apps, but it was just at the point of frustration with where I was at. I knew I needed, new knowledge and to test myself. So that got me in the game with technology. I think that's when we first crossed paths, maybe end of 2014, early 2015 potentially. I think was the first time we connected, and from there, that again, just by applying those same principles of thinking it into existence and connecting the dots, which was what I used back in building, applying that then to the mobile app company, which then rolled into the other technology opportunity that we had, which we spent the last 4 or 5 years working on. which, as you mentioned, is that's been really interesting. I've been in rooms and had conversations that a builder from a small town in Queensland has no business of having those conversations. But it's through that process of, I guess, being able to see it, connect the dots, and, I guess keep practicing that process. I was really introverted before, going back to before business. There was no way I could have a conversation like this. So quite often people say, yeah, but I'm not good at that. I'm like, no, it's not that you're not good at it. You've just never done it. It's a bit like what you were talking about with, the Olympic athletes. So, yeah, that transition led us obviously working together on the technology front. We were working with the CDC before anyone knew who the CDC was, thanks to the what's been going on the last couple of years. They were one of our first
Center for Disease Control.
Yeah, Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. There was us and Apple that had, our company and Apple were the two companies that had that level of agreement with them at that point. So that gave us a good insight. We were working, and I won't go into heaps of detail, but we were working in health prevention. So obviously in public health, you have prevention and treatment. Now, unfortunately, 80% of the funding flows into advancing treatment of cures because there's a better business model for the companies that are behind that. There's more money to be made in treatment and 20% for prevention. So we developed some interesting technology, though, around how to move the needle slightly differently in the prevention front. Actually look at how could we take something that no one wants to learn about, tie something of relevance to it for that person, and then take them on an individual journey to actually shift their knowledge, attitudes, and intent about whatever that topic was. So we had some really great wins with that, but then obviously with the COVID situation coming along, there was, the state governments were our customers for that in the US. So literally overnight, 5 years worth of work ground to a halt on that, just because, the people we were dealing with just had no bandwidth to talk to us whatsoever, and still don't. So that will reemerge when there's bandwidth. But that was, I guess, 6 months. Just get my bearings here. May's birthday. What month of the year was that?
Yeah, May. So it's nearly 2 years ago.
Nearly 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it was that point in time of, March 2020, I suppose it was, then March, April, May. Yeah. So it was a couple of months after the shake-up started happening worldwide. I think I was sharing some of the frustration with you around how slow moving that end of who we're dealing with is. It's great, but it's just so slow to move the needle and to move things forward. It takes years, not months, weeks, or days. Then I guess our topic of conversation shifted towards what I was going to do. We were chatting all things how we're going to live, or that question that I've always bounced that around ever since on the farm at UCI at your place, that time where you asked people how are we meant to be living. And I think you actually challenged me because I was sharing with you the idea of leasing land, and I don't think I shared there at that point, Keegan, that was Vanuatu where I'd come across that concept. I think I was just talking about what I might do, how I might shift my life around, but yeah, I guess that's shifting the conversation into sort of the last 20 months. I guess we can pull it up there on the history.
You've had that big time of the awakening from small town country boy into I can actually go and speak to whoever the F I want. I can, they'll have a conversation with me if they think that I can help them with something. And so you smash through a bunch of imposter syndrome. You built all sorts of technology. You connected with people who knew how to develop things, and you made things happen. You got investors, you got conversations, you went and saw the world. You took your children over to the States to have those sort of adventures. But then at some point, especially with Corona, you realize there's maybe not as much goodwill for preventative health or whatever the barrier is. It doesn't matter really what it is. The fact is there's not that, it doesn't matter how good your technology is for preventative health. It's not being adopted as quickly as it needs to be for you to be able to build the business that you want in that, and to be able to look after your family on the back of it. And so, yeah, we had that heavy conversation at lunch where I was sort of saying, we need to, I'm probably listening to some stuff I shouldn't listen to at that time about the way the world is headed. Other people might have tuned in as well to kind of the darkest version of what the future might look like. But I challenged you of like, what if it was up to you, and if you had to not rely on any government, giving you millions of dollars for contracts, and not relying on investors to see the potential of what you're doing, like, how would you set up your life? And then, it's been pretty remarkable, like how much things have changed for you over the last, nearly 2 years, 20 months or so. So it'd be cool if you could share a bit of like where you live now and some of the projects that you've got off the ground.
Sure. Yeah, so that conversation was the catalyst. I took that literally and decided to go do something about it. I grew up on land. From late primary school, which is early middle school for those listening elsewhere around the world, 270 acres. So we had space. So then moving to where we are now, we're on the Sunshine Coast, which is an hour north of Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Moving back to suburbia when we came up here, I guess if I quickly go forward, because I was a builder, I built 2 houses. And I was always told growing up that owning your own house is, you need to own your own house. Unfortunately, I missed the context of that meaning, own it, don't have a mortgage, but that's all right. I learned that lesson. So by the time I was 24, I built 2 houses, had 2 mortgages. This was 2006 through 2009. And that was when the GFC hit and interest rates went from 6% to almost 10%. And I was earning $1,400 a fortnight, and my house repayments were $1,700 a fortnight because the interest rate pretty much doubled. So I sold those houses then and quashed that. I don't think your house is your biggest asset. I'm not sure who came up with that tagline, but lots of people have bought into it. And I guess what I'm doing now ties back to that lesson I learned there. Even as a builder, where I did all the work myself, I still couldn't make it work when the interest rates went up. So, labor is the biggest cost in building a house, and I wore all that on the 2 houses, but it still didn't work when the interest rates doubled. So there's something in there for people to have a think about, I think. So where we are now, we live fully off grid in the hinterland here on the Sunshine Coast. I live on land that I don't own, but I can do whatever I like on this land. We're living here permanently at the moment, but the residence we have here isn't permanent. We could pick this up and ship it wherever we wanted around the world. So how did that come about? Well, I go back to Vanuatu. I spent some time in Vanuatu in 2010, and they did it differently over there. They gave the land back to the custom owners in 1980. So unlike Australia, where the land was taken from the rightful owners back in the day, Vanuatu government said, no, it goes back to the tribes, the custom owners of the land, and it's up to them to then do what they will with it. They can't sell it to foreign entities, but they can lease it for 75 to 90 years. That really made sense to me. Coming off what I just experienced with the GFC and the houses, I'm like, that makes way more sense. So that had been in the back of my mind, but I guess, life had got in the way. It was your conversation then that prompted me to go, well, hold on, why don't I explore that model again? Surely there's farmers everywhere that have a piece of land that's growing weeds and maybe 1 cow. There's so much land. You've just got to go ask the question. So that's what I did. Went and found a farmer, and I explained, here's exactly what I want to do. I've got young kids. I grew up on land. I built some rapport, obviously, and I've actually documented this whole process if other people are interested in what I did there. But went through a process with the landholder to say, hey, here's what I want to do. I don't want to buy land. I want to take my family traveling. We want a base. How about I lease that 4 acres off you, and I want it for free for the first 6 months so we can tidy it up, and then I'll give you $100 a week thereafter for it. And he said, yeah, sounds awesome. So, sometimes it's just about having that conversation, just asking someone. There's a lot of vacant land around. So I've had numbers of conversations with people now around that process of, okay, if you want some land to start growing something or run some cattle, just go ask someone. So we then decided, well, we're still living in town. You know, the common rental, 4-bedroom, big house on the water, blah blah blah. You know, $750 a week, something like that. I wanted to go traveling. I wanted to take the family traveling. So it's like, well, we're going to ditch the rental. We're going to go traveling. What are we going to do? Well, why don't we set up a little cabin as a weekender here on the block? Talk to the landowner. Yeah, go for it. You know, get the approval from the local government regulatory body to do what we did here, and set it up. So then I was like, well, why don't I do an experiment here? If I had to buy this land, it would be about $500,000 for 4 acres up here on the range in the Sunshine Coast. So to buy that, you need a 10% deposit, so $50K. So I was like, all right, my goal is I'm going to set out to see what we can do for less than the deposit it would take to buy this land. So to date, we're at just under $35,000 Australian, so 30,000 US. We live fully functioning, 6 of us in this place. Off the grid, waterless toilet, composting toilets, solar power, solar energy. And our total cost of living here is $150 a week. So, you know, $600 a month. So I've taken, well, you know, one month of what you'd pay traditionally for the common style of living, rental, and through that house deposit that people have saved, you know, I've invested that into this, and I'm now paying $600 a month total to be here, and it gives me access now.
One of the paths to becoming financially abundant, I'm speaking to people every day who really just want to feel like they are not under pressure. They're not under pressure from a mortgage. They're not under pressure from bills that are bigger than their income. The position that you were in, the position that I got to in 2019, which I really didn't want to be in. This is one possible solution while you build the dream income, while you build your investments and you know, speculate on things that can transform your future. This is one version of how you could decrease your living expenses by looking at uncommon paths. And maybe people listening would love to do exactly what you've done, in which case, you know, you have got a blueprint for that, and you're having conversations consistently with members of the Uncommon community about, you know, how you did it, what you did. But even if that isn't your idea, or you live, you know, somewhere else, thinking creatively about, okay, how could I, you know, decrease my living expenses during the time that I ramp up my income? What impact has it had on your income to sort of free up your mind and not be under the pressure of those bills that are, you know, making you live around the break-even point week to week or month to month?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's huge. Well, that wasn't the motivating factor. I wanted to get onto land. I knew that it was gonna create space, like you said. So it allowed us. We went traveling. I took my family around Australia for a couple of months, and you know, that just would not be possible. And that's something else I talk to people about. How would you afford to go around Australia? It's so expensive. I'm like, how do you afford to pay a mortgage? It's so expensive to live like that. It just depends on your frame of reference. So it's made a huge difference, though, in the ability to, I guess, for me to look at other opportunities is more what it's done. So it's given me that space and time to actually to be able to, I guess, pick and choose, put together some of my own stuff, which is what I was always really good at, helping others and connecting dots, and still really enjoy doing that. But I never had the time, like you're talking about, time and freedom to actually, you know, construct. There's a lot of stuff there in the last 8 years. So be able to construct that into something meaningful for other people, whether that's helping them start a business. I reckon I've helped probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 businesses start, at least, in going from the 0 to 1. I've helped some raise some money, and it's made a big difference. It was just like, relax isn't the right word, but it was like the pressure came off. So it's like, okay, cool, I can actually think more clearly here and chart a path. And
Yeah.
what I'd say, it's not even about financials for everyone. If you're crushing it and you want access to land, think of this as another model to get access now. Well, what I find, most people are in love with the idea of having acreage, not the actual practicality, and that might ring true for you as well. A lot of people want the farm, want a lot of land, but they don't actually understand what comes with having that. So something like what I've done here is an easy way to get access now, not wait until the big contracts come through, or the whatever happens, whatever you're waiting for. If you've got kids, they're not going to wait forever. So that was my motivating factor here: is let's do it now and get access now.
And so, yeah, for your children, that's given them the opportunity to grow up in the country. It's given you an opportunity to choose what you're doing with your time a little bit more, because you're not under so much pressure of where the money needs to come from. Like in theory, you could work very little, as you have those building skills. I know you've been doing some work around that. You could pay all your bills on 1 day a week work. That might be the dream for some young dads or dads with young children. There's no one way to do it. The other option, and a lot of people looking at, is that plan B. We've been building sort of a plan B in Vanuatu, but you've also got a plan B that you've decided to make your plan A. You live on it now, but someone else might have it there in the country, that friends can go and visit, that they go and play around on weekends, that if things don't go to plan and you live in a little apartment in the city, then having something that costs you a few $1,000s a year in rent and costs you 30-40 grand to set up, maybe that makes sense. Maybe it makes sense to set that up between 3 or 4 other families and know that you could run a herd of goats and sheep on there. And people are thinking more about plan B than ever before in their own countries and potentially in other countries as well. So you've done something about that, and it's like, that's what's really cool. That's why I love our conversations, because we have a conversation and then things happen, change happens. And anyone listening, the creativity of that, and the concept of, well, what if we could, and just parking the imposter syndrome a little bit to the side and thinking, well, there's no way I could ever do that. What if you could, and what's the first step is a way that you can end up. Like these are principles, as well as there's a specific some specific case studies there. Let's touch a little bit on Vanuatu before we get to speaking about the next phase in UNCOM and uncommon success. You said you went to Vanuatu with your family. It sort of sparked a dream and a vision, and you always plan to go back. You visited an island not too far from the major airport there, just across the water, 10 minutes away, pristine, very little development. And you sort of thought, one day I'm going to do something here. And after you did what you've done there in Queensland, or at the same time, you started to think a little bit more of, well, maybe one day is coming up now. Tell us a bit more about what's happened there.
For sure. Yeah, so we went over, it was for 8 weeks in 2009-10. So it was, 2010, it was just after New Year's. Tatiana, my oldest, my only daughter at that point, was just turned 2. So it was an interesting experience taking her over there. Auri Island, which is 54 square kilometers, as you said, it just sits off the mainland of Espiritu Santo. A lot of people haven't heard of Vanuatu.
Most common question I get is, where's that? And I say near Fiji. And that's usually solves it in the Pacific near Fiji.
Yeah. Halfway between Australia and Fiji is what I'll say to people. Right next door to New Caledonia, if you've ever heard of that. No, most people haven't. Most people know it's somewhere. Most people know it's somewhere in the Pacific, but that's about it. So, what struck me when I went there was, wow, why don't people know about this? This is amazing. We went to places that the guy that took us is like, I don't think anyone's been up here before. Not at least for in my lifetime. So, where else can you go around the world where you can go places like that, where you may be in the first half a dozen people to go and explore that place. The locals kind of keep themselves over there. They don't go out of their way to do anything. It's still that end of the island. Some people have heard of Port Vila. Port Vila is the capital. And I would describe that as no different to, like the Gold Coast or like, San Francisco on the bay there. It's resorts, it's high rises, it's casinos, it's a much smaller island. So, it's much more developed. This is the other end of the spectrum. There's still good services there, but it's chiefs and tribes on the land still.
Yeah, so there are already houses along the water in the
Mm,
kind of most accessible part of this Ari Island. It's not uninhabited. There are people living there.
yeah,
There's kind of a local school and whatnot. But then there are other huge tracts of land that are perfect for cattle, are perfect for beachfront lots, and you've got connections there who own that land, and we've been
yep,
making it known to people in our community of, hey, like there's all this land over here, like what would we do with it if we were going to do something? How much would it cost to get something going over there? Like what's the current status on that?
yeah. So current status is there is a group of people that got together, and we did secure 70 hectares, which is about 180 acres, 178 acres, with the view to turn that into a farming operation. So get some water security there, which we can actually post up some of that so people could see. We had some of the locals dig a well to secure water on that property, which is quite an entertaining experience to witness. And yeah, we're about to get underway with some fencing on that property, and then there'll be a little bit of infrastructure to get water troughs and solar pumps, etc., for the cattle. And then it'll be into cattle. That'll be the next thing we'd be opening up to the network. Who wants to buy a cow rather? And with the view of, if you go there, you'll be able to eat it. If you don't, keep it for 6, 8, 9 months, and make a couple $100 when it's sold to the meatworks. So yeah, that's where the current status. There is and I'll chat to you at some point in the next day or two. There is another exciting opportunity that's come up, which could mean everyone that's been involved to date makes a really great return on their investment, and we actually get into a bigger, better property that actually fronts the ocean side, the mainland side. So that's come up over the last couple of days. So we're going to be sharing that with the group soon. But that's kind of the point, is anyone that's attached, there's opportunities over there coming up all the time. So the people that have decided to play are in the loop on what those opportunities are. So yeah, what excites me is to be able to create, I guess it segues into what we're talking about with UNCOM as well. I see that as a destination where there is food, water, beef. It's abundant seafood there as well. It's only a couple of hours from the Australian mainland. I see it
grow anything.
Yeah, 3 meters of rain a year is the average rainfall. So stuff grows a lot. There's not really a winter. It's summer year round. So yeah, there's a lot going for it. I see it as it will be one of the hubs for Uncommon, and an Uncommon hub where people can come and stay and play and train and eat and connect, collaborate, learn some skills that they never thought they'd be able to learn, and take that away, back to where they are, and hopefully replicate that. Hopefully, we have hubs pop up all over the world. That would be how I see what we're going to create there, as kind of a blueprint.
So with that size of amount of fertile land, it's really possible, feasible that hundreds of us could have a share in it. And if we all decided we wanted to go and live there, we could all live on that sized piece of land. In a worst case scenario in the world, you could live there in kind of a primitive tribal way. And in a best case, you could take all kinds of technology. There is actually a project. I don't know if it's, I think it's the Satoshi Island one, another one of the islands in Vanuatu. It's doing they're really a tech hub based out of Vanuatu, aiming to attract crypto startup, tech startup, blockchain startup projects, somewhat like UNCOM is becoming. They're literally setting the place up like that. So what's to say we couldn't, set this up in that way as well? The more success we have within the community, depending on what restrictions happen and what restrictions don't happen, it may be a great option for some people to go and want to live there. The setup costs and the investment required to have this become something phenomenal is a very small fraction of what it would cost to do that in Australia or in United States or Canada. And yeah, like that excites me. And as you say, having a farm, I don't necessarily want a farm at the moment. I don't really have an interest in being a farmer right now, and I don't need to be on a farm. But it makes sense to me, like it makes sense to Bill Gates, to have farmland and to have the possibility of being on a farm. So I think other people probably have that same position as well. So what we need is trust, and what we need are systems to be able to make that happen. And that's what we have within, those of us that have sort of participated in this Vanuatu project so far. Like, we're all friends, we know each other, and it's like relatively small amounts of money in the big scheme of things that it's going to require to do something really, really cool there. So ideally, we do this in Vanuatu, we do this in Latin America, we do this, potentially in Montenegro or somewhere around here. Albania is super cheap and beautiful. It's between Croatia and Greece. It has pristine coastline, and it's very cheap. Some of the places might not turn out to be like, there's some degree of volatility in the politics and but there's no guarantees in the Western, in Australia and Canada and the UK and France are not what they used to be either. So it's a game of bets, and you can bet with a lot smaller amount of money on something that potentially has a much bigger upside, especially if you think about, Tony Robbins has an island in Fiji that he's run millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of business through for events. What if we had a place where we were able to run events? I've had a lot of friends from Australia take members from their gyms over to Spain to have a really good time at Mike's gym in Marbella, and that's been phenomenal. But it would actually make more sense probably to take them to Vanuatu instead. So there's all kinds of business models and experiences and possibilities that we can create. The thing that we need is trust and value and success. So the more valuable people in our community are, the more success that they've had, and the more they trust each other, the more we can create phenomenal things. And this is not about communism where we all collectively own everything. There's the opportunity to own your own piece of whatever, but it's much more attractive to own your own piece of Vanuatu next to my piece and next to Lyndon's piece and next to a project that has infrastructure and where people and you have connections. Otherwise, it's kind of like, I would never go buy over there. Like, I would never do it. So you need that trust around it, and it brings it to life. And the same potentially goes for a project in Nicaragua or Mexico or somewhere where it's like,
100%.
If there's a bunch of us in on this, then that makes a ton more sense than me going and securing a piece of land in a community where I have no connections. That's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage people listening to us to talk about this. You don't even have to buy the land, remember. So there is that option to lease and just get something started. So there is a plot where if there is a group of you guys that, in different areas, or you want somebody to go camp, or, remember that, having money to buy it is an option, but there's also the option to do long-term leases as well. Just as a way to
generally as a mind flexibility, mind shift. Wherever you are, if you want to plot of land together with friends, like you can kind of pitch it, and you've been having conversations and you put together a guide about how to actually do that. So that's something that you can support people with. Let's move on to how this community and sort of how we can help more people to be more successful is really my biggest priority. Like, I've achieved more than I thought I ever would in lots of different ways, and against the odds. And I would like other people to achieve similar, more. And I think the only way my life gets better from here is if more people in my network are able to do same or better in terms of achieving freedom, abundance, getting the most value out into the world. Like, that's the only way my life gets better from here, is if I'm able to do that. So that's a huge focus for me. Mentoring the ATG for Coaches community to help those people expand their skills and expand their visions for the future and what they can do as coaches. And then people in UNCOM, some of them are from ATG for Coaches, but people from all kind of walks, looking to, okay, how do I escape the society trap? How do I get off the path that I've sort of been put into by default? And how do I do something a bit more like what you've done, like what I've done? That's sort of the question that we're answering. And we're thinking about how we can bring this technology into it. The same way you were thinking about that with the behavior change technology for preventative health, we're thinking about that now for success. Like, how do you gamify and bring Web3 to success, to personal development, to helping people get stuff done? So we're building this infrastructure, this network. There are things that we know already work. Like, there are tons of programs, the Body for Life and things like that, where you put a bit of money down, and then if you do the best job, you get a ton of money back. There are all sorts of apps. There's a precedent for that over, decades. What if we brought that into crypto, into Web3, and we were able to use micro payments and micro rewards along the way? And what if we were able to use NFTs to reward the process, but also permanently kind of document the process, so there was a higher degree of accountability? What if every player had their own kind of baseball card, a bit like Ray Dalio uses with his staff to be able to put teams of people together? What if we were able to set up masterminds because we have that data from people? This is kind of the vision of what we could create, we are creating with UNCOM. So yeah, what are you seeing at the moment with like the evolution of this?
So I was thinking about this last night. Where I see this getting to is becoming uncommon is a career path, where you can choose to become uncommon, and you can choose success as a career path via the method that is being put together, where just like it wasn't possible to get paid to put videos on YouTube 10 years ago, what we're creating here is something new. Now, like you said, there is components that are being done that are proven, and success leaves clues. So obviously we're going to include that, but the ability to actually get paid to become uncommon and successful at something, I don't think that's ever been done before. I've looked at a lot of projects. We were pretty early into some of the blockchain stuff back in the ICO boom, 2016, 17, 18, and there was nothing then. I've still been looking. There's nothing like this that is incorporating success as an overarching goal for people, where we can create a career for them out of being successful, out of chasing success. So I guess what I'm seeing is there's a couple of things that drive people. There's, tangible rewards, something tangible. There's, the intangible, where they want to see how they stack up against other people, and, what percentage of the way are they through, how many tokens they have, etc. Then there's also, we've got to give people that opportunity that are altruistic and just really want to be part of this. We've still got to account for those people that are like, you know what, I don't need to make money. I'm successful. I just want to help you guys. So that's got to dovetail into this as well. And then the third and final thing. Now these three things I'm explaining were, Purdue Pharma kind of invented marketing for drugs back in the day. They had the first $1 billion drug in Valium, and they figured it out that it was, what's in it for me, fear of missing out, and altruism. I just want to help because this is a great cause, or everyone else is taking it, so why not I? So, those principles are the same principles we're fighting against with the treatment, the people that are maybe not promoting success, that they're using those same principles of grabbing people's attention. So I see this as a perfect methodology to be able to use what we know what works, but combine, like you say, Web 3.0. And Web 3 can be confusing for people. The way I describe it is Web 1 was, log in with your username and password. Web 2 was then the ability to connect with your Facebook account or connect with Twitter or connect with Gmail. Web 3 is now the ability to gain access just by connecting your wallet. So that sort of breakdown has helped people I've had conversations with go, oh, okay, I see what you mean. You know, you have a wallet, you connect it, and based on what's in that wallet, you will get access to a myriad of different things. So tying in the micropayments where people are then incentivized. What if they're incentivized to jump on a podcast, or if they're incentivized to do 10, connect with 10 people and provide value every week? If that sort of stuff hasn't been done before, it's not there as a career path. You don't get paid to connect with people when you go to university. What if you did?
Yeah.
It's not university that we're offering, but that model just has not existed. There's been mentoring, and mentoring is totally part of the parcel. But I think tying in like you're saying, the delayed gratification where you've got to put skin in the game and you've got to work. Yes, you'll get your micropayments, micro incentives along the way, but then being rewarded when you actually achieve success. There's nothing else like this. So that therein is the exciting thing, but that therein is also the challenging thing when you're creating something that is the first of its kind. Much like it was for us, it was a challenge doing something that hadn't been done before in the prevention space with technology.
Yeah, and I mean, I personally have a few friends who've become very, very wealthy because they bought some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And what they did was they bought some Bitcoin. Like they literally just bought some Bitcoin. They weren't Warren Buffett. They didn't transform companies. They didn't XYZ. They bought some Bitcoin. Yeah. The reason why they bought some Bitcoin was because they were looking, their frame of reference was what's going to make a lot of money? Like where's the future? The future right now is in e-learning, and it's in crypto. If you look at the last decade, if you look at the statistics, you can't argue against the success of blockchain technology, the growth of blockchain technology. Now, we don't know whether it's going to lead to a lot of decentralization or whether it's going to lead to much more controlled taxation and etc. What we can be pretty confident of is it's staying, So we're not telling you this is some alternative system that's going to, break the way everything's worked for the last 2 centuries and more. What we are saying is this technology is here to stay. It's getting bigger all the time, and it's a better way of doing this sort of business. And I've been experiencing it myself as a customer and in different ways, different projects over these last sort of 6 months. I've been pretty, I've done a lot of research into blockchain over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years. And I'm very, very confident that this is going to have an impact on every fitness business, on every online training business, on every e-learning platform. What we need and what e-learning needs, which is already a multi-billion-dollar industry, it needs accountability. It needs better systems where the person who's giving the course, it's transparent of what results that course is getting, and it's transparent what results the students are getting. The students having accountability to each other, the students having their results, permanently on the blockchain, those kind of concepts. I can see people taking their education 100 times more seriously, and so they're actually going to go get it done. If you took success as seriously as you would take becoming an Olympic athlete, if you took it as seriously as becoming a doctor, then you would solve it. It might take 4, 5, 8 years like it does for those other pursuits, 12, 15 years. Chances are to achieve a similar level of success to what you might achieve in an average profession, it's not going to take that long if you take it seriously and if you're around people who know what they're doing.
And I think what excites me is the business model the business models that Web3 and blockchain open up. So more than NFT, I get excited about the business model that can create, not so much whether it's clever artwork or not. So dovetailing into that, thinking about e-learning and online learning, it was interesting. We did some stuff in Africa. COVID was the catalyst in Africa to make online learning legal. Before it wasn't a thing up until late 2020, early 2021. So think of that. That market just started in Africa in 2021. But the challenge I see, even with the e-learning solutions, and we've looked at a lot of those as well, is it's still rewarding people based on memory, not based on putting what they learn into action. And I think that's the big difference with UNCOM is there's the feedback mechanisms, there's the networks to actually put what you're learning into action and be rewarded for doing that, not be rewarded for having the best memory to be able to get the best marks on and pass the test and get the certificate.
Yeah, the outcome for us is that you get success in your life. Like it literally, we don't care if you can repeat back the principles. We care what's the bottom line for you. Like, why did you join? What do you want to achieve? Who do you want to become? If you do that, then you won. If you don't do that, then you didn't win, and we're not winning either. So it is different from traditional education in that sense. Like all we care about is the results, and we want to give you experiences so that you can learn, you can go through. The best way to learn sales is listening to Alex Hormozy, who's the most successful guy in fitness, who's now gone on to focus on other businesses, which are far more profitable, because it turns out gyms are a really tough business that don't pay that well. He speaks about, like, if I'm going to teach someone sales, then they need to start selling. Before they go and read any book, before they go and listen to anything, you go through that experience, and then you'll know, oh, that's why rapport matters. Because when you read the book, it has no significance to you. But when you actually have a conversation with someone and you're like, did I just say that? Or, what am I meant to say here? Like, why did this person hang up on me, or whatever actually happens? Then you read the book, then you listen to the expert negotiator with new ears. And so that is the process that we're all about, like experiential learning and, diving in for yourself. That's the way that I've learned. I had no background in business. I was a strength coach. I'd worked with professional teams that had been successful, and then I had to make it work. Initially, I had a salesperson that was working with me, and then I didn't have a salesperson anymore. And it was either I make some sales and I get to keep working with these phenomenal people who are happy, or I go do something else. I go back to working with professional teams, or find another job. So sales is just one example, but when you have that support and accountability around you, and when other people are doing what you want to do and they feel comfortable with what you want to become and they've already done it, then it's a much simpler, easier process. We all mirror. We all have these mirror neurons that mirror the people around us. And so a big part of success is simply being around other people who've done what you've done, or who are doing what you want to do. And you will take on that identity, whether that is the athletic side of things, fat loss, getting super strong, whether that is becoming wealthier, and having a plan, what you're doing with your money, how you're going to make more of it, how you're going to keep some. It's not that I'm going to solve anything. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a financial anything. I'm just a balding strength coach who managed to escape the rat race, and I want to see other people do that. And I've helped, there are quite a long list of people who've done it now, and but we can do it better and different, and we can accomplish more things, like the project that we're talking about in Vanuatu. And how can we replicate and have one of them in Europe as well, and have one of them in Latin America as well? That sort of stuff is very possible, and it doesn't take a lot of money. What it takes is the decision to do that, and some people who are having success, where there's like a level of abundance where it's like, that's an easy decision. Like let's make that happen, and let's go hang out there. Like let's do some good stuff. Exactly. So yeah, many questions still to answer around the exact details. We're working on the white paper. The NFT has launched. Our NFT has a 50% off utility, which is cool. The UNCOM token is in existence, so some people have the token for our network. There are only 1 million tokens, and so if you have 10 of them, then you're already you have something that most people can't have. So step by step, we're building it. And what I'm just as excited about is any coach, anyone who's joining our network, anyone who's playing along and experiencing, okay, yeah, I bought 10 UNCOM tokens. I've got, $100 invested in this. they're also going to think about where that applies to their business, and they're also going to think about, when am I launching my NFT? What utility am I going to put behind my NFT? And that's what I love as well, because this stuff is coming and it's not slowing down.
No. Well, what the thing I've said to a few people, because I don't understand why everyone's not buying UNCOMs, to be frank. Like the opportunity that exists right now is like when Bitcoin. I had a friend tell me to buy Bitcoin as 50 cents. He sold his house and bought Bitcoin. He worked in the mines. He slept in the public toilets so he could put his working away from home accommodation allowance into Bitcoin. I don't know where that guy is anymore. No one's ever heard from him in years. So that's the opportunity here. But
the answer is wherever he wants to be.
Exactly. But the difference here is we're in direct control of how much the UNCOM becomes worth. Imagine if you could directly influence the price of Bitcoin. And a group of us got together and went, you know what, we're going to do this by this date, which is going to raise the value, raise the stakes in the group, which is going to raise the price. That's what I'm not sure whether people really understand the magnitude of what's available here. That as a collective, we get to decide how much this becomes worth. So I'm encouraging everyone I talk to think about it like you're a founder in this thing. This is yours now. How are we going to grow it? How are you going to provide more value so that you can actually grow that investment? Like that's the opportunity. This is like Bitcoin at cents on the dollar, but you get to choose how valuable you want it to become.
And that is in fact how all crypto works, which is really it is super exciting. The NFT play potentially opens the possibility of things like venture capital and seed funding to everyone, to smaller players. And it's not exactly like that yet, and the regulation stuff isn't really clear on it in the States of how it's going to play out with, can you pay out royalties and can you say that it's seed funding and those sorts of things. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but what looks all but certain is like it's not going away. You see the NBA, the NFL, they're all moving into these NFT economies. Anyone who's in crypto and in tech is looking at this as a path forward. One of the recent companies that we've been looking at is a data storage and file transfer company. Data storage and file transfer, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's called Bullet, and some of us have bought a few tokens, and we, likely to get an NFT. We got a reward. These are mainstream business concepts that are arriving to Web3. This is not like some weird sort of play. These are people who've been in business for 20, 30 years, long before blockchain was known about, and they're bringing the project to blockchain because it has functionality that they want to be able to disrupt those other file storage, and they can decentralize data storage. They can give a higher degree of security and optionality to someone with sending files. So whether that's someone who's selling online programs, wanting to make sure no one else can check out the program, or wanting to get royalties every time it's passed on, you can do pay per open. So they have to pay when they open the document. These functionalities are things that we want these already, and so this is what gives me so much confidence that the technology here is just going to continue to get better and better.
For sure.
Yeah, my neighbor here he works with the NFL, NBA NFTs with Flow. I think it's Flow.com.
Okay.
They're the biggest player. They're bringing on 10 developers at the moment, and they're struggling to find developers at strong six-figure salaries. Why they're struggling to find them, even though they're one of the biggest players, it's because they're in massive demand. Why they're in massive demand? Because this is the future. This is when everybody decided they need a website. Well, now everybody's deciding they need this technology. So, and I need it. Everybody in e-learning needs it. If you're honest with yourself, like e-learning doesn't get the results that you would like. I've been doing e-learning for a long time, and the challenge was first to have a decent member site that people could even access stuff. It's still not where it needs to be. No. But you can see with Web3 that with micro rewards, with increased accountability, with a permanent kind of ledger of, okay, what's going on here? What's this person actually done? Yeah, it's gonna work. It's a dream come true for those who want outcomes for their online education program. So,
100%.
yeah,
Well
I'm
said.
excited for what we're building. We've got a lot of work to do, but I
Yeah.
appreciate your support in that and the ability to bounce ideas. Yeah, bring it home for us with your take on what's next here.
What's next for UNCOM, or what's next for the world, or both?
Yeah, for yourself and where you see this vision
What's next
going.
for
Let's
me?
tie it all
Yeah.
together.
So yeah, yeah. So yeah, I see I see events as one of the next iterations for UNCOM to start to be able to as a gateway for people to actually experience some of the stuff on the Athletic Richer Smarter front. We've put together a pretty cool framework that we're going to run and test as an event here at the end of May that we'll be able to share with everyone as well. Be the only event I'm pretty sure that I've ever heard of where you'll earn a 10% ROI just for actually turning up and completing the event. But you'll have to choose your ROI, whether it's in silver dollars or in fiat currency. So there's an interesting play there. So events I see it as playing a role in the hybrid, the mix between the online, the metaverse world, and the real world. I also see this network very shortly being at the point that's going to demand the attention and respect from some really interesting people from around the world, which is then going to open up corridors. I have some people that I'm going to bring into the network and get calls with yourself that are, they're a couple of pegs below Elon Musk level, but they're up there in that world. So as far as then access to problem solving, I need this. Yeah, cool. Connect with this company here. Here's a warm introduction. So I just see the network starting to expand kind of exponentially as more people come in. That trust grows. It's then just going to, I see UNCOM as the place that people come to solve then global problems. That was always, when I got into technology, that was always where I saw my vision of being attached to the entity, the organism that puts together the team. That's like, oh, this is broken. Cool. We need to go to UNCOM because those guys fix everything. They have solutions for if you're wanting to go set up on an island like you're talking about. If you want to, know how to eat better, if you want to change your behavior around addictive tendencies or whatever it is, there's just there's a funnel, a very wide funnel at the top that UNCOM is going to be able to cover off and make a huge impact. Ultimately, it's going to move the needle in a good direction globally. That's the opportunity that I see here.
Yeah, there's a lot of very smart people in this network already, and it's improving all the time. So I love what you're talking about there, and I think for anyone listening, like the biggest take home I would love for you to have is that become more valuable, develop yourself, and if you would like to have more access to more people who are on that same path, then there is a network here for it now. And for a long time, I haven't known, where you can find people who are on this path of athletic, richer, smarter, masterminding towards that. Like that's what I've always wanted. And I know there are a lot of other people out there who felt like that as well, to have real experiences and to become better. So, biggest take home, be optimistic for the future, improve yourself. And if you want to be connected to others who are on that path, then the door is open and we're charging.
Absolutely. And, even though I'm doing relatively well for myself at the moment, I'm still on the calls. I'm still connecting with as many people as I possibly can every day. Adding value wherever I can. I think that's the big lesson, just to reiterate, like you're saying, is if you want more, want to create more, you've got to be more. So, yeah, I'm happy to speak with anyone and everyone, whether they're wanting to start their business or scale it or need a technology solution or, some of the things I've helped you with helping get something launched or, it's just a matter of asking. That's the
I've
big
got a
step
couple of dozen calls. I've got a couple of dozen calls
Yeah.
again this week, and I'm just about to jump on one with an Olympic champion hockey coach. So thank you so much
Epic.
for your time today, Lyndon. And yeah, we'll connect again very soon. And yeah, love to hear thoughts from those who listened in.
Thanks, brother.
Jason.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.